Kefka, who's like the bad guy from 6, and one of the 2 most famous bad guys. Kefka and Sephiroth are like the bad guys from the Final Fantasy series. And Kefka was harvesting them to get these crystals.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah, to build his exact words were to build a monument to non-existence. He was so it.
Look, it was a little. Thanos called and wants his line back.
Right.
Like, come on, man.
Well, Thanos was building a monument to half existence.
Thanos was trying to get Death to love him.
Yeah,
and you know what?
He had a crush.
It's pathetic, no matter how you do it.
I understand. I understand a crush. I understand doing things for your crush. Hello and welcome to Comic Dissection, a leftist comic books club where we read comics to an intersectional leftist lens and invite you along for the ride. Woot woot. I am Reno V, and with me, as always, is Cecilia Rose. How are you?
I'm awake in here.
Hey, I'm half of that. I am also here and waking as we go. You will...
The much subdued voice of Reno.
You will hear my voice just slowly get empowered as this podcast goes on, and I'm forced to defend our book for the week.
It won't be that much of a defense.
I kid look, because I love Cecilia.
I did warn you as I started reading it that it might
there may be a roasting in order. Yeah,
a slight roasting.
Yeah,
but as it ended, I have some nitpicks, but it wasn't as bad as Sword Art Online, which is what I was thinking going into it.
After rereading it, I liked it even more, and so
that's fair.
We may come back to this, but I guess we should not leave people in suspense who somehow clicked on this without reading the title. But we are discussing Final Fantasy Lost Strangers. Or Lost Stranger, Volume 1. This is a manga by Zuki Minaz, who did the story, and Isuki Kamiya, who did the art. And holy moly, let me what's the word I'm looking for? Expound, alliterate, discuss,
gush
about the Final Fantasy series and my love for it, and why everything I have to say today about this manga must be taken with a grain of salt, because I am a fanboy for this in the same way I'm a fanboy for the Riddler, which means I cannot truly be trusted. My opinions on this. I did really enjoy it, but it is such a love letter to Final Fantasy fans that it would have been hard for me not to. I had a Nintendo Entertainment System, which also reveals my age. And Final Fantasy, the first one, was one of the first games that I had for that system. And because we were rich enough to have a Nintendo, but poor enough to never be able to buy any games. When you got a game, that was your game for a long time, which meant you had to play it. You had to put 100 hours in, even if it was the worst fucking game in the world, because you did not know how long it would be before you got another one.
No, I do recall this, because granted I was a little younger than you. We had
there were game systems in your time as well.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say we had a PlayStation.
At your time as well.
Facts.
Yeah.
I think it was a PlayStation 2. Mm-hmm. But we had a PlayStation, and we had one of those really old knockoff It might not even have been a knockoff, but it was like a really old 3D Frogger game.
Whoa.
That we played forever. I cannot even express the amount of time that we've spent just passing controllers around and like fucking around with Frogger. And it was a 3D Frogger. Like, the game itself
did not deserve the amount of attention that you gave
Here's the thing. At the time, and because I can't remember exactly what it's called, at the time, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Looking at it now, the graphics are probably shit, and like the gameplay probably makes zero sense. There's not probably a plot, but there were some mushrooms, and you could leap from place to place, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I loved that game. I spent so much time on that game, and I also did start playing Final Fantasy. I think it was 9.
Okay. 9's a goodie.
9
might be the music. Spoiler: when this comes out, I'm toying with the idea of having our intro and exit be a little Final Fantasy tune. So, and it might be 9 because 9 has some banging tunes.
I think it was 9 because it's the girl with the long black hair and like the blue dress.
8.
8. Okay.
Yes.
It was 2 discs, which was the thing. And I think
probably 4. Yeah, 8 and 9 both had like a stupid amount of discs. They came in like a box.
I don't remember exactly, but I remember having it, and I got partway through the first disc, and then I think it got a scratch on it, and I never went back to it.
Okay, funny story. My disc was on the closing of the 4th disc.
No.
Yeah. So I put like 80 hours into that game, and when I beat it, it froze about 10 minutes into the ending movie.
All that work.
And I just, because for those who don't play Japanese RPGs, you're often putting in 60 to 80 hours in these games to like get to the end. And if you're trying to get all the little secrets and side quests and stuff, possibly more. And I was. I wanted to get all the rare cards and all the summons and all the cool, neat little Hooba Majubas, and sure enough, I did. And if you know, you know. There's a scene at the end where the main character's like in the middle of this gray wasteland, and the girl in the blue dress is trying to bring him back by like they say before they go, they're like, after this happens, like the world's going to be undone for a minute, and it's going to be your faith and belief in each other that's going to bring you back. And so she's like trying to remember him and thinking of him. Oh, it's so Doctor Who. Like that story. It's a girl coming from the future in a time out of space to make sure that the sorceress never is born. And it's Doctor Who as fuck. But it's right at the part where he's like depressed and like he's lost. Because the whole game, he's been the loner, right? So, like, they've got to bring him back.
Because God
forbid he think of them. But they have to think of him and yank him back from this void. And that's where it freezes. He's in the void by himself. And I'm like, all right. But yes, I played 1 through 16 and beat most of them except for the ones that are like MMOs or whatever, and a lot of the spin-off games and a lot of the other Square Enix games and all this stuff. So
that's adorable.
A super fan, and so were the people who made this. Hazuki, the person who did the story, talked about how they were a fan from like day one, and like this is dream come true to be writing a Final Fantasy manga.
I enjoy that for anyone.
I know, right? Like that weird dude who did his weird He-Man character Laser Lot and put it in the fucking
I
comic.
adore that for anyone because as someone who has
fandoms
and who has wrote fan fiction for said fandoms, like I really enjoy and appreciate when someone gets to live out that dream on that level. Yes. Like that is fantastic.
I both love it and I'm super jealous of it.
Amen.
Yeah, I'm not quite at the maturity level where I can just love it.
I mostly love it.
I mostly love it. But I would also bit like of it should have been me.
Yeah. No, I feel that.
Yeah, and the person who does the art, and gonna go ahead and give a quick shout out to the art. I really like the art in this.
It was really good art, yeah.
Yeah, Itsuki was the younger sibling who used to watch their older brother play the Final Fantasy games.
Oh, so they're Yuko, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Yuko's such a good character.
And it gets even sadder because that older sibling has passed away.
Oh.
So now, like, the artist said, like, when they go back and play the games again now, it's, like, also bonding with their sibling. And so, again,
that's so sweet.
The two people that came together to make this are, like,
Yeah.
Like, it was almost the fulfilling of a prophecy that they got together and made this. So, big thing. And you mentioned Sword Art Online. I did want to briefly contrast this to that very common, I say Japanese, but
Isekai?
Isekai. In all cultures, this I got trapped in the game things.
Well,
from everything to like American movies like Jumanji to fucking video games like Hack and The World Ends With You to manga like also Hack and Sword Art Online and
and even the very first anime novel that I read, Scumville and Self-Saving System, is a transmigration novel where the dude gets sucked into the world of the novel that he had been reading.
Yeah.
So like it does it and go ahead.
I was just going to just bring up that it's a common trope. And that in this book, it turns a lot of those expectations on its ear.
Yeah.
You expect the main character to perfectly move into the world and become like a super god, like just automatically be good at everything. You expect them to have like the best skills, and you expect the rules to match up with whatever game they have currently found themselves in.
I did make a note at the end of my notes that was very much so that kind of like, I want to go ahead and own up to the fact that I have bad feelings about isekai as a genre.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you end up with the main character. I really despise it when a character gets transmigrated and they're the best at everything because of reasons and sparkles.
Because they're the fucking chosen one. Yeah,
and then they get harems of women who are entirely too good for them, despite their personality consisting of soggy white bread. Mm-hmm. Like, that is such a fucking irritation. Like, I even prefer toxic relationships as opposed to, I don't think we've actually gotten into it too much of my toxic stuff yet, but I prefer outright bad attractions as opposed to attractions to plain white walls. Like, a character with no personality who still somehow is like magically great at everything, and then on top of that, everyone's in love with them for no reason. Yeah. That shit is irritating. Yeah. It's bad writing.
Well, and it also, it's bad writing for the male characters, but it's also bad writing for the female characters.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're just like, I'm attracted to power, and like, I gotta like this guy. He's gonna save the world.
It's very male rights activist-y.
Well, yeah, and male fantasy. I mean, it is male fantasy, like, down at its base, but it's not... not to be hashtag not all men, but it's not my male fantasy like that. Like, I much more relate to this guy. Like, this guy sucks at everything, and I'm like, I still want to be in that guy. Well, it's just... his superpower is lore, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. Like,
and I actually do, like, they do establish when he gets down to his power. I even appreciate the fact that his power is based off of stuff that he is actually good at. Like, it's an actual
It's the Cecilia power of, I researched way too deep into this thing I started liking.
Ouch.
That was meant as a compliment to him, not an insult to you, Cecilia. Let me be clear.
As someone who hyper-focuses, ouch. Okay, that was...
It just means you're not alone. You're not alone, my friend.
This is a fair...
You're not even alone in this room. Much more in fiction, you're not alone. But you're not even alone out of the two of us.
As isekai as a genre is a thing that is... And here's the thing, I don't mind harems necessarily. I just prefer...
Now, when you define isekai, you define it as... How do you define isekai?
Sort of any kind of transmigration where a character gets taken from one world into another.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard a few different definitions, and I also want to make sure our audience, who may have not heard any definitions, or like me, who've heard too many definitions, want to make sure we're all on the same page. But
it's basically when you're used to one world and then you get pulled into another.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like you could be from a video game and be pulled into reality, or vice versa, or just through time and space and all that jazz.
Okay. All right, sorry, I was interrupting.
No,
you were
I
saying?
forgot what I was going to say. You're good.
My apologies.
It happens.
Yes, but without further ado, why don't we get started? We are treated in the first few pages to a treat I'm always a fan of, is a couple of color pages, and I always like some nice color pages.
My first note here is I'm going to go ahead and hope that I end up liking this dude, because he looks like a knockoff Kogami, and I am here for it.
I feel like he... I feel like he did. I was like, well, at least that's one thing that Cecilia might be able to get behind. Yeah,
he is actually. Yeah,
he's like a less confident Kogami.
He is like a less confident Kogami. Yeah. Kogami's younger brother.
Yeah, he really is. This is one of the tragedies Kogami never talks about. It's how his younger brother disappeared one day along with his younger sister. They both poofed into a video game. And right at the beginning, we get an open shot of Moogles saying Kupo, which is one of the Final Fantasy, because it is an old series with 100 games to it. It's got mascots, and one of them is the little Moogle, which is kind of like a weird little koala cat bear with a red ball on its head, little bat wings.
Think, I know you haven't seen it, but it made me think of the little evil creature in Madoka Magica.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a type.
Yeah, it's a type.
It does very much look like a little familiar imp, a little cute little familiar imp. But we open on our Shogo, who is our main character. He is in a bar / lunch restaurant, and Shogo Sasaki, who is a 4th year at Square Enix. He's a planner, which is one of the people that, before the game even starts, designs, here's what the story will be about, here's what the level will be about, blah, blah, blah. And he's not working on the Final Fantasy franchise. Square Enix does lots of different types of games, right? Yeah, he's probably working on, a phone app game, because he's a 4th year, and, the seniority, super important. It's in the Japanese culture. So, you start at the bottom.
You gotta work your way up.
Yeah, you gotta work your way up. And I imagine he's working on a phone game for little squiggly bears or something.
Aww.
But he's talking about how... And at first you think he's drunk, but it turns out that he's drinking... Horichai, which is like a green tea. He's not drunk. He's just
he's just pathetic.
He's just pathetic. He's on his lunch break, and you get the idea that he's on his lunch date with Yuko, who's his sister.
I actually wrote down here, because I have been traumatized by Isekai. So she's really his sister, right? And we're not going to end up in some weird type of incesty deal.
Luckily, they are just a brother and sister who like each other. They are. It doesn't go any further than that.
Thank God.
Yeah, but they're on lunch break, and you get the impression that this is something that she's had to listen to before. He's talking about how
he whines a lot,
how much it sucks that he wants to make Final Fantasy games, and for 4 years he's been not making Final Fantasy games, and he yanks out his little product placement as PSP, and
there was a lot of product placement at the start
Square
of this.
Enix, baby. It's you should be buying all these Square Enix things, and when Square Enix things are not on screen, you should be asking, "Where's the Square Enix things?"
This was a very cute commercial.
Yeah,
is what I'm now clocking.
Yeah. Although it's kind of a you're preaching to the choir with this commercial. The people that are buying this are already, invested.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's like a church comic book that's trying to convince you that Jesus exists. It's I decided to read
Don't give the Christians any more ideas.
I decided to read a church comic book. I kind of already am on that horse. But he yanks out his little handheld PSP and starts playing. And he's for people who play MMOs, he's saying things about farming and leveling and when creatures spawn and a bunch of video. Yeah, stuff that's not relevant.
My eyes glazed over, and I just kind of...
Well, all you needed to get from it is this dude's a video game nerd. Like, and I'm sure that was, I'm sure that was clearly expressed. And Yuko smacks the shit out of him, and she's like, look, we don't get to have lunch that often, so put your game down and talk to me already. And, Shogo, for his effort, realizes he's being a jerk and asks her about her promotion because she's a second year and she's in sales. And 2 years in, she's already been promoted, whereas he's been in there 4 years, and you get the impression he has not yet been promoted.
Yeah.
And he talks about, and I kind of like it, not in a jealous way. He talks about how, like, she's always been a really good people person, and she's really good at networking. And when she finds herself in a new situation, she immediately adapts and makes herself at home and is accepted. Like, she can fit in anywhere. Which
is an underrated skill.
It is
really.
Yes, but not by this manga. Like, they give her mad props with her ability to fit in and how much it helps the team.
Yeah.
So, he's talking to her up and like, well, it's great you got the promotion and blah, blah, blah. She's flashing back to when they were kids and how he used to play the games, and he would recite to her like what the main characters said. Like,
they actually have a really cute relationship. They have a great,
like, I really
love that.
As someone who is the younger brother, I have a 4-year-old older than me sister. Like, I related to this very much because we would sit and play Nintendo games and later Super Nintendo games together and, like, strategize and pass the controller back and forth. And she was always Mario and I always had to be Luigi. Like,
I was going to say, as someone who also played video games with their younger sibling, I get this, that's cute, but that is not how me and my brother played. We were much more
It is a little more idolized because, there's no fighting here. Which
we were much more cutthroat. When we used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, I would rearrange the rules in ways that helped me win. Yeah. And then when he got old enough to read and he could actually argue back, things changed a little bit.
Yeah, that seems fair.
It wasn't. I didn't win quite as much afterwards.
So it wasn't fair, actually.
No, I didn't appreciate it at all.
Yeah, but she's flashing back to, like, their youth together and how he had all the Final Fantasy. So he made his own strategy guides as he was playing through games, which doesn't sound like much, but in Japan, strategy guides are like serious business. They are works of art. They are, like, for a 15-hour game, you'll have a strategy guide like that thick. Damn. And it'll have everything from, like, 100 different ways to beat the levels to what the blood type and favorite snack is of every single character and monster you will encounter in that game.
I appreciate the thoroughness of that.
Oh, it's wonderful. I was going to bring one here and set it on the table because I have some of these Ultima guides from Japan. They never got released. They're called Final Fantasy Bibles by people in America, but the actual guides have never been released in English over here. But I have some from my time overseas. Like, I have a whole bookshelf of it. Now, I will, Cecilia, before you leave, I will at least point out on my bookshelf that I am this kid. He's got them all laid out, and if you are a fan, you see lots of things. You're like, oh, that's FF5. Oh, that's FF. A lot of Easter eggs if you're a Final Fantasy person. If not, you just get the story that, like, it's kind of amazing that they both achieved their dream to work at Square Enix.
Although, because his brother's dream is not quite achieved.
Yes, but the beginning of their dream is to obviously work at the place where you make the game. And
they're in the right direction.
Yeah, Shogo and Yuko both are there. They're at Square Enix, and they talked about making a Final Fantasy game together. And she gets mad because he's talking about giving up. He's like, I'll just be a cog in the Square wheel forever, and I'll just make whatever games they put in front of me. And Yuko gets mad because she's always looked up to Shogo's, like, not give up-itness. But, man, real life and capitalism, it can wear you down after a while.
It really can.
Yeah, so I relate to both these characters. Like,
Yuko is who I want to be.
Yeah, Shogo's who I may currently be, and I apologize for that. But we all need a Yuko in our life cheering us on because she puts Shogo back on track. And he's like, you're right. We're going to do this thing.
Can't give up yet.
Yeah, and then she describes how, like, she's like, oh, so there's a little 16-bit version of Shogo, and she's showing, like, oh, you had all these status alignments on you, and then your sister cast a ray spell and a cure on you because your career was dying. and he's like, okay, you bought me a 500 yen, which is like a $5, like a $5 meal. Cool your jets, lady.
You did not bring me back from the dead. Take a breath.
Yeah, it's very cute. So while they're bickering, they walk in the street, and all of a sudden you see a truck that looks like it is getting ready to hit them. Yep. And then blackness. Yep. And his face is getting tickled, and he thinks it's his dog. He opens his eyes, and no, it is a Moogle. And it's saying Kupopo. And Kupo is like what the Moogles say. It's like their little catchphrase sound. The Kui is a Chocobo catchphrase sound for anyone who needs an onomatopoeia for their pets. He wakes up, he's in the middle of a forest, which is not where he was hit by a truck. So he's a little confused. And there's two very strangely dressed people standing over him. So, he's like, thinks they're cosplayers. Which, yeah, I get that. And
this is fair.
Yeah. And this is Rei Hagakura, who is a warrior, an elven warrior. And Dustin Volta, who is a black mage. And he is wearing this, like, spiky witch's hat, which is what the black mages have been wearing since Final Fantasy 1. So it's a little nod to the black mage outfit. And as you would expect from this type of situation, there's the whole confusion. The where am I? What? Who are you guys? Shiruru shows up at this point as well. Mm-hmm. And she's a white mage. So a black mage is your offensive magic and your fireballs, and your white mage is your healing stuff, your cures and your antidote spells and such. And we immediately realize that Shiruru has kind of a healing obsession, and will just cast all of her cure spells at once until she's exhausted and will faint. The kind of person that we all know in real life who will heal the other person to the point that they themselves are hurting. Yeah. I also should quickly mention, there's 3 chapters to this, and we're in chapter 1, which is called Prelude Rebirth, also a name of a Final Fantasy game. So is Defiers of Fate, which is chapter 2. But yeah, she starts casting Cure on him, and he's like under a tree, and he's too stunned to move, and she thinks he's still hurt and unconscious, so she just keeps casting Cure spells on him until she faints.
Yeah, so when they find him, Ray and Dustin are like, unfortunately, he's still alive. Yeah. Which makes you think that they're kind of assholes for no reason. Yeah. And then that you find out the reason they said unfortunately is because they knew that Shiruru was going to do this.
Yeah,
and,
they're worried about their teammate knocking herself out trying to help them. And you get a little blushing scene between Shiruru and Shogo. You kind of get the idea that she's a looker because I think Ray also has a bit of a crush on her.
No, I'm shipping Ray and Shiruru
I think that's where we're going to end up, honestly. I certainly hope so. I ship them but so Ray hard. Definitely has...
The only concern Ray has for any character is all Shiruru. Yeah. Everyone else can go die, but Shiruru looks at her with those puppy dog eyes, and she's like,
just keeps melting. Just melts. I feel a little bad for Ray here, because Ray usually has good advice and has to go against it, because... Also, I should mention, this is a team of 3, of which Shiruru is the leader. Possibly not equipped to lead. But... Actually, the person really you want leading because the heart of the team.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really actually enjoy the fact that the one who gets to lead is the healer who goes out on the limb for everybody.
Well, and will make the compassionate calls. Whereas if Ray was in charge, Ray would always make the practical calls. Yeah. And Dustin would probably make like the... he would do the sit back and wait approach until the situation had just gone by. Yeah, like, he's the wait and see guy. So... You get all the outlooks between what will eventually be this group of 5. And everyone's got a role to play as far as... They all form a very good mind for the situation. Like, they all know how to cleverly do. We get a full-page shot of... You, of course, get the where am I line. What is this place? And you get a beautiful full-page shot of the Final Fantasy world, which is where he is. There's a set of... giant ribs like over the mountain, like a huge dragon died there a long time ago, and mountains and crystal towers, and oh man, it's pretty stuff.
Very pretty.
Yes.
I'll agree with that.
And they're like, okay, we're going to go to the town of, is it NYGPO? Nickpo? It's a very strange name for a town.
Wait.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It is also possible that I am blind.
I thought it was Niplo.
Niplo?
Nilplo?
Yes. Well, having never heard it pronounced
it's Nylpo.
Nylpo. Niplo. Yeah. Niplo. Like the off-brand of Duplo blocks.
I did write down here that this town is my cottagecore fantasy.
Oh, man, right? Oh, everyone's got these little cottages in the trees, and it's a pretty town.
It is very pretty.
And you got the town square where everyone's selling like little baked goods and stuff. And you get to see the other mascot, which you would not know you were in a Final Fantasy game without, a Chocobo.
I wrote down Kevin from Up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, big, large birds you can ride, for what it's worth. And it's strange because he starts seeing all the different like races and species from Final Fantasy games, but the names are all different.
I wrote down I'm ignoring all of these name things.
Well, they're not super important, and honestly, I'm still going to be like cat person, elf, dwarf, like because it's kind of what you were saying last time when they were like, oh, we're gonna call them fairies, but. Actually, I don't know if you did this in the podcast or we did this in a conversation.
This was just a conversation.
Oh, well, let's bring it to the podcast. You were talking about how
this actually they give you whatever the Final Fantasy name is, and then the dude's like, no, it's this other thing that's like two syllables
like, what?
apart from each other, and it's just like, look. I don't care how you spell fairy. A fairy is a fucking fairy. If it's got wings and pointy ears and some sort of witchy magic bullshit going on, it's a fucking fairy.
A rose by any other name. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah.
So I ignored all. Like you got like 2 pages of these names and alternate names.
Here's the important part of it, and this is why I like it, even though I, like Cecilia, ignored it. It's letting you know, as soon as he gets here, that his Final Fantasy knowledge is not 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And this is something he forgets. But
very quickly.
Yeah.
I can kind of see, like, to give him some credit, which is going to be probably the only time I do this, because he gets on my nerves a little bit with this.
That's fair.
I could see how it would be comforting to think that you knew what you were getting yourself into.
Yeah. Well, it's also like when you go to a place where the language is different. You're like, I would like to order a coffee. And it's like, oh, well, it is a café here because we're in this France that I made up in my mind where that might be the word for coffee. So, yeah, it's very much like when you go to a new place. At first, he's like, okay, well, the words are different, but the rules, I'm sure, are the same. And we get a shot where he's worried about his sister. He goes, Yuko, I looked all around on my way here, but I saw no trace of her. I wonder where she ended up. Don't tell me she's... And he's sweating, and his eyes are open wide, and he's... he looks scared to death that something's happened to his sister. But they open the inn... And she's already right at home. She's listening to someone tell a story. She's like, wait, a goblin did that? Oh, that's too funny. She's got a whole bunch of food in front of her. So she's obviously already found a way to live and eat in this new world.
I'm glad that they didn't leave us wondering about Yuko.
Yeah.
Like at this point, I was already kind of attached to her.
Yeah. And she is right there. And she's like, oh, so you ended up here too. So apparently that worry only went one way. She's just sitting there eating and having a good time. And she is already friends with Sharuru, our white mage. Like, they had met previously. So,
which makes you wonder how long the boy's been out, because how long did they not get here at the same time?
Yeah.
Like, what happened there?
Yeah, maybe she woke up in the city, so she was surrounded by people. And he woke up out in the woods, so it took a while for anyone to notice him. He was just under a tree. So they lay some food out for him, and all of a sudden his eyes start doing this weird thing where, like in a video game, a little box opens up that tells you what the food is. It tells you the ingredients and a description, which honestly would be a good thing for food anyway.
It really would. That would be nice.
Yeah, in the future, that's what our Google glasses will do for us.
I got some bad news for you about Google Glasses.
That's the future the deep state wants. No, what's the bad news? Are they? What's wrong with the Google? Well, I'll tell you the bad news. I can't afford them anyway, so it doesn't matter. I see people with Google Watches, and I'm like, oh, a millionaire's here. So, yeah, when it comes to Google Glasses, and I'm an old man who hates technology, so that will never be my life.
I would like them just because my eyesight's really bad, and it would be nice to be able to like zoom in and out on things that I can't see regularly.
That's true. I want to start wearing glasses like a sexy librarian, but
I could be a librarian.
You sure could, Cecilia. It'd be a great life.
Well, I just got a new bookshelf, and so I was rearranging. So
you're practically a librarian.
Well, I was rearranging all my books from the old bookshelf to the new bookshelf, and I was going through them, and I cannot express to you the amount of joy and sincere happiness it filled my heart with to get to arrange my books like in a way that like the sizes were all right, and I got to sort of put them by subject and like yeah, it made me happy.
It healed your soul.
It did.
I actually need to do that with my bookshelves, and I know I'll enjoy it while I'm doing it, but I'm dreading the first step, Yeah.
It's
that first step. But man, I need to organize it because I've got graphic novels all over the place. Like my Ultima guides are not all together. It's a whole mess. But yeah, our main character is kind of doing the how did I get here thing. And he starts mentioning all these things from Final Fantasy games. He's like, oh, did I fall through a void gate? Was I summoned? Was it a grimoire? Like, he's just mentioning different ways that people get summoned around. Oh, I should have mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, and Tactics Advanced too, are Final Fantasy games where someone gets warped into another world, from the real world to a fantasy world. So, like, Final Fantasy has done this almost exactly before.
This is an old hat.
Yeah. So, when I was mentioning things that did it, I should have very much mentioned Final Fantasy has done it. Yeah. And they're talking. Meanwhile, his sister is asking about what it's like being an adventurer. Like, because in this world, that's a job.
Yeah.
That's a full-time job you can have. Like in the 1700s, you could be an explorer. And it was a paid gig.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of genocide that went with being an explorer back in the day.
Well, I mean, yeah, but the idea of the job is very romantic. The just going to places man has like not been and walking through the woods and coming back and being like, oh, it's really cool. I made a map. Like, if that wasn't followed by hundreds of people going there with guns and nets.
Take all of their resources.
That's what I mean. Hundreds of people going there with guns and nets because of the map you drew. If you take out that part, it's a very romantic. If you're just like a map maker who just wants to see the world, that's a very romantic.
I feel the same way about philosophy.
Thing, yeah. How so? What? How so?
It's not really a job nowadays to be a philosopher, but it would be nice to just sit around and think about things, like to just kind of consider, the existence of things.
Yeah, it would be. And then if you were really good at it, you got to become an oracle, and people would bring you, I don't know, grapes and stuff, depending on which oracle we're talking about.
I'm about to say, I feel like we're talking about different things.
Yeah. I just want people to bring me grapes. I don't care what the job is, really.
The grocery store's just down.
Grape tester. I mean,
you can be the food tester for the king. There you go.
I ain't mad about it. What a way to go. So yeah, Yuko is trying to get them a job.
One of them has sense.
Yeah,
we can guess which one.
Yeah, like we're gonna be adventurers and. It basically tells Shogo, like, I'm just taking your advice. Thinking can't help you when you don't know anything. So what you got to do is learn more. Look hard, study hard, think hard, and search hard. You have to believe there's an answer to be found here. So why don't we do this?
Do you have other plans?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and she tells him, he's like, you should really be into this. Like, the whole reason you took archery as your high school Japanese club is because you wanted to be a ranger.
Archery is so cool.
You wanted to be, well, I wish we had archery club at schools here.
I don't think we need to give Americans any more weapons.
I mean, I would honestly feel safer if they knew how to use bows than if they knew how to use guns, like, personally. But
I'm just thinking of more weapons, more problems. But, you know, if you could swap them, sure.
Well, you could swap the interest in them. I would much rather someone have a wall of bows than a wall of guns, but...
Bows are pretty.
First of all, just a better wall decoration.
Very true.
Yeah. But yeah, he took the whole reason he learned how to use the bow in his high school club, because you know, in Japanese schools you have to pick a club and join a club, and he was like, oh, I want to pick the archery club. It's because he wanted to be a ranger. And she's like, this should be right up your alley. You should totally want to do this. And Dustin doesn't care. The black mage is like, I want to join. Whatever. And Shiruru loves the idea. Mm-hmm. Shiruru's real more the merrier. Ray, on the other hand, is like, no, we're not a good team right now. Like, adding 2 more albatrosses around their neck is not going to make us a better team.
This is where I started shipping Ray and Shiruru.
Oh, yeah. Like, Shiruru puts the doe eyes on, and Ray immediately goes...
like a stack of papers, she goes down, folding cards.
It is a reoccurring theme where, like, Ray's like, no, we're not doing this. Then you get the eyes, and then you get Dustin whispering from off stage, yeah, who's the leader again? And Ray's like, Sharu is. So, yes, fine, we'll do it.
Whatever you say.
Yeah. So, our hero is very excited because... I put heroes in parentheses. You didn't see it. But Shogo's excited because he's like, okay, here's something I could do. I'm going to make a guide for this world. He's going to be the adventurer that I was just describing, or that map maker I was just describing. He's like, I'm going to make a ultimate travel guide for this world.
Which is, again... It's a thing he does.
Yeah. And I'm also glad he's not like, I'm going to be a paladin. And we're like, I'm going to be a sword-wielding awesome dude. He's like, I'm going to
make a book.
I'm going to be the librarian. I'm going to be the sage who, while everyone's fighting, I'm just scribbling in my little book.
I'm making notes about different... Yeah, like, it's a thing where it's like he has a character.
Yeah.
And he is staying true to his character.
Yeah, he didn't immediately become God when he came to this new world.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thinking can't help you with what you don't know. So what you got to do is learn more. Look hard, study hard, think hard, and search hard. Like, that is a reoccurring theme here. Yep. And he's writing notes as they go. He's like, okay, the currency's still called Gil in this world. Like, some of the terminology is still the same. A Moogle's still a Moogle. A Chocobo's still a Chocobo. Money is still called Gil. Okay. He's talking about how even small wimpy animals are dangerous to us because we're basically level 1. And there's a picture of him getting, like, bitten in the butt by, like, a Pikachu-looking rat creature. Which I also found funny. He's got notes on Chocobos. He's like, they're smelly. Their drool is especially smelly. And he's got, like, a big question mark next to it. He's talking about Chocobos and stuff. So, yeah, we learn as we go. And you also learn that he's an artist, which makes sense because when you're planning video games, you have to draw, like, conception art for it. So everyone's sort of impressed with his drawing skill. There's also your needless gratuity scene where they talk about... Yeah, I wrote
down here, fan service is fan service-y. Yep. Also, why is Shiruru just grabbing her tits? Are they having an orgy? Because I'm down for that, but they better be having an orgy.
They better be. Women aren't allowed to grab their boobs just for...
It's unnecessary to start with.
It looks like she's just resting her hands on them while she's floating in the bathtub. Not having boobs myself, I don't know if that's ever a thing you do.
It's not a thing you do.
In a communal bath, but...
it's not a thing you do. Also, I feel bad for her back because her fucking breasts are huge!
Yeah, those gotta hurt.
This tiny little waif of a girl has, like, G boobs, and, like... Yeah. Her back has to hurt. Yeah. My boobs aren't that big, and my back hurts. I cannot imagine.
They must. They are making sure that you've got the breast sides for any and all all sides interest.
Yeah, because
it's very much
Yuko's basically flat chested.
It's very much the Goldilocks of the and the three pairs of breasts.
Yeah, Ray's are normal sized.
Yes.
And Shiruru, that poor girl, I feel so bad for that child.
Yes. But
like I said, better be having an origin.
It's a cover story for a note of they have communal bathing just like we do in Japan, and they also, instead of rubber duckies, they have little rubber chocobos, which she again thought was worth making a note of. Again, very cute. He's having a good time. They're all having a very good time. He's drawing a map. Shiruru and Yuko are having a great time. They're like making like flower wreaths for each other while
they're very cute.
He's sketching the nearby mountain, and Shiruru comes over and is kind of like, "Wow, you got skills," and describes what it would look like if she drew it, and it's like, it's very bad.
Me and Shiruru have the same art level abilities happening here.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, how do you do that?" He's like, "I don't know. I just pay close attention and draw what I see." And his sister's like, "Ugh, that's what talented people always say. It's so annoying."
I just really appreciate that, like, he didn't come here and suddenly he can wield a sword and, like, do all kinds of weird technical shit. He came here and he can do the same shit he could do in real life.
Yeah.
He can draw and he pays a lot of attention.
Yeah. He notices, like, oh, it's weird that this room dead ends here. Maybe there's a secret door behind. It's like, that's how a video game designer would design this castle. And they're like, oh yeah, you're finding all these hidden secrets. Like, it's like you have a cheat guide for this life. He's like, yeah, I sort of do. I played this game before.
I know how this works.
Yeah. So they're at the bar talking, and this is where you find out that, much like in Dungeons and Dragons or most RPGs, you have a job class, and you have to go to a guild and like join up to be a bard or a fighter or a black mage or a white mage. And the black mage Dustin is like, "Wow, you two are jobless. You don't even have jobs. And, like, we need to get y'all jobs." And they talk about Shogo possibly being a ranger or an archer because he likes using the bow. And Yuko they don't really discuss what Yuko could be. Yuko kind of seems like the kind of person that she'd be good at whatever she picked. Like, whatever she picks, she'll be good at. So we don't have to worry about it. But they're interrupted by someone running in saying that there's a child trapped by a monster in the nearby valley. Uh-huh. And our heroes, of course, rise to the occasion to go and help. Because why the heck wouldn't you?
I can think of a good reason.
Your adventures, by God. And then we get to meet the Dawnless White Dragon, who I love this dragon.
I wrote down, because they call it the Dawnless White Dragon, I was thinking of the Blue Eyes White Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh!
They share a look.
Yeah, there's some similarities.
Yeah. And white dragons are notorious in Final Fantasy ever since 5, I think. There's a few famous dragons in Final Fantasy lore that are also famous in other lores. Like, Final Fantasy took a lot from Dungeons and Dragons and other fantasy things. But Bahamut is like the one. He's the king of dragons. He's the one that shows up in all the games. But behind him, there's also a Tiamat and I think its name's Shiruru. But Shiruru's like this mean old white dragon that shows up in a boss in a lot of the games. And this Dawnless White Dragon, I think, may be homage to that. But man, it is a scary mother flubber.
It is a big dragon and it looks mean.
Yeah. Holy moly, does it look mean. And they're like, okay, we are outclassed and
I do enjoy,
we should run.
I do enjoy that they know that they're not on this level. Like,
yeah.
The first thing he said, like, he says that, like, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
We will be punished for being.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, we'll just hide till it goes by. But Shogo wisely is like, Ria's like, look, all we can do is go get help. People that can fight this thing. The child will have to hide until help arrives. That's all we can hope for. And he's like, she's so young. She could start crying or screaming if she's found. Like, he's having a lot of trouble. Like, he doesn't want to leave this kid, obviously, because who would?
Yeah, it's
And
fair.
then he's thinking of, you don't need a reason to help people, which is a famous line from Final Fantasy IX. And Final Fantasy IX, when the game starts, you get like these shots of all the characters, and they each have like a quote that describes that character. Like there's a little black mage named Vivi that says, how do you know if you exist? Maybe we don't exist. And Zidane, you don't need a reason to help people. And these one line gives you like perfect understanding into that character and who they are. And it's a powerful thing.
Does he say that or does she say that?
He's thinking about it, and then she says it. It's a little bit of brother-sister telepathy here. Hero of FF9 sure had some cool lines. Do you remember? And then it talks about when she was losing a game and she'd start crying, and he would give her that line, like, and tell her you can't give up, and like teaching her things that the video game characters did that he idolized. And she was like, you were so cool. As adults, we start to think of limits and risk and stop being able to act. I know this, but the thing that seems cool to me, the thing that inspired me, I want to value them even now. We abandon them, then we lose sight of ourselves. So I say, and he's like, Yuko? He's like, let's do all we can. I'm going to make a run for it and save that kid. And the rest of the group's like, whoa, lady.
Yeah, I wrote down here, it's a shame Yuko isn't the main character.
Oh my God. Well, she is right now. Man, she is stepping up. And she's like,
I love her.
And she's very quickly, she's like, you guys distract. I'm getting the kid. Let's go. And before anyone can say...
No one gets a chance to even pretend to talk her out of it.
Dustin.
She's gone.
Yeah, Dustin, the thinking man, is like, maybe we should plan a... Oh, she's gone. Yeah.
She's left.
Yeah, and everyone... Here's the thing. At this point, the party had one of two options.
Let the little
Sorry,
girl...
kid, and leave, or run in and back her up. It's like the Leroy Jenkins viral YouTube video from way back. They run in and help. They're like, all right, we're going to save this person. And they immediately... She gets to the child... And then you have a shot of the dragon just like looming over both of them. And Shogo springs into action. He pulls out, he looks at the wall, and he notices that, again, he's super good at noticing. Like he's like, there's something odd about the terrain. It's a little different from when I sketched it. This part of the river is a little more narrow than when I drew it. So the cliff has crumbled in on its own. The cliff is unstable. And then his eyes start doing that weird thing where the squares start appearing. And you can see places where if he hits the cliff, it'll collapse. So he's like, all right. So he pulls out his bow and arrow and he starts shooting those spots. And he causes the rock fall that distracts the dragon and allows his sister to get the little girl. So everything's going along well. And she literally throws this child to him. She's like below her on this cliff face that just collapsed. And she throws the child up. Shogo catches the child. And then when Yuko is jumping up and he's reaching out to catch her, the dragon swoops in and just chomps her. And this killed me. Out of fucking I have read a fair amount of manga in my day, and this I did not see coming like at all, and I'm not gonna lie, it wrecked me a little.
I wrote down, why do the girls have to die in service of some mediocre boy? I liked Yuko. They better have had an orgy in that bathtub. And
I hope she had a good time while she was here. Here for a good time, not a long time.
This is what I get for liking someone. At least there won't be any incest shit, though.
Right? Yeah, saved from that, if that was ever a risk.
Look, I've been traumatized by Isekai, so I was just waiting, and then she dies, and I'm like, there won't be any incest, but also the best character just died. What the fuck, man?
Yeah. So Shiruru is casting Cure over and over again and crying, and it's just a heartbreaking. Even the little Moogle is sad. Everyone's around, and Rhea is like, her death, it was near instant. like trying to comfort him.
Is her name Rhea or Ray?
I'm going to pronounce it Ray, Rhea, and Bria, just depending on when I'm saying it.
Okay.
Don't know. Haven't heard it out loud.
It looks like it was spelled R-E-I, which is...
R-E-I.
Which is Ray in the Sailor Moon manga. That's how her name
Ray
is spelled.
Here as well, yeah.
I was just assuming.
And I will probably say Ray at least a third of the time. I'm always... With a name I've never heard said out loud, my mind will often just like fill it in differently every time. Like, I know those 3 letters mean that person, but I'll pronounce it different in my head every time I read it, which is not great. And then... Shogo remembers that in Final Fantasy, death, not a big deal. You have Phoenix Downs, you have raise spells, you have life spells, like tons of ways to bring people back. It's an embarrassment of riches as far as bringing people back. And Sharuru's like, a spell like raise only exists in fairy tales. And there's just a shot of her laying there covered with Sharuru's like cape, which is covered in blood, and him standing there just helpless looking at her.
So did the dragon not eat her? Like, the dragon just chomped her and dropped her and then left?
It's one of those things. I imagine, like, have you ever seen a dog like bite something and then shake it with its mouth and then like throw it? That's sort of what I imagine. But yeah, whatever this dragon is about, it's not eating people. Like, it's killing lots of people, but not for sustenance.
Wasteful.
Whatever. Yeah, it's a wasteful dragon. If we need another reason to not like this dragon besides it eating one of the best people, it's wasteful. You know, if it used every part of the Yuko, I wouldn't have been so upset.
I still would have been upset, but it doesn't make much sense to me that, like, it gets chomped, she gets chomped, and then they have the body. Like, that's...
Yeah.
One, how did they get the body back? Did the dragon... There's no...
Yeah. I assume it was a chomp and release. Yeah,
it's just a cut. Like, I don't know how they got away. The dragon didn't chase them.
Yeah.
I understand for narrative purposes, but there's a gap in time, and I don't know what happened.
Yeah. How the body was recovered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I assume it was a chomp and release, and then the dragon... We will actually find out more about... how they got rescued, or what happened when they returned to town. But that is the end of Volume 1 with There's No Such Thing as Raise. Volume 2 opens with Shogo flashing back to his sister at different times.
Yeah, I wrote down him not realizing that at first that she was really gone was heartbreaking, and the little flashes of Yuko were hurtful and unnecessary.
Yeah. The last scene is you don't need a reason to help people, and then the picture of her getting bit.
Yeah.
Chapter 2, Defiers of Fate. And again, he's like, this can't be. And Shogo loses his shit a bit here, as you might expect.
Yeah.
He grabs Shiruru and he's shaking her. I know, what about a Phoenix Down? Or a Rise? Or Life? Anything will do as long as Yuko comes back. I'm begging you, Shiruru. And he's shaking her, and it doesn't feel good. But Ray punches him in the face and says, "You're a disgrace, Shogo." Ray, just give up. Those who die don't come back to life. And at this point, I had a feeling maybe Ray had lost somebody too. Because just the way you're saying, those who die don't come back to life. And he's laying there, he's like, it can't be. And then you get an interesting thing in this world. When someone dies, their life essence turns into a crystal. Mm-hmm. Now, in Final Fantasy, crystals are super important. Like in the first game, your entire purpose is cleansing the 4 crystals. They correspond with the 4 elements. There's a fire, crystal, wind, water, air. And they've all been corrupted by this dude from the 400 years in the past named Garland, who sent his like evil minions to the future to like take over the world. You know, Doctor Who shit. And even in Final Fantasy 1, the plot was pretty complex for a Nintendo game.
Fair enough.
And you're cleansing the crystals. And the crystals return in other games in various forms. In FF7, they're they're stones that you use to cast magic spells. Okay. In FS6, they're actually the souls of monsters from another realm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of horrible. It's cool, but it's also horrible because Kefka, who's like the bad guy from 6, and one of the 2 most famous bad guys. Kefka and Sephiroth are like the bad guys from the Final Fantasy series. And Kefka was harvesting them to get these crystals.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah, to build his exact words were to build a monument to non-existence. He was so it.
Look,
it was a little
Thanos called and wants his line back.
Right.
Like, come on, man.
Well, Thanos was building a monument to half existence.
Thanos was trying to get Death to love him.
Yeah,
and you know what?
He had a crush.
It's pathetic, no matter how you do it.
I understand. I understand a crush. I understand doing things for your crush.
I'm gonna remind you of that when I tell you what we're reading.
Oh, fair enough.
Next.
Yeah, but no, Kefka's a sad story. I mean, a quick aside. He was a general who they infused with magical energy, and they had not perfected the technique yet, and it broke his mind. And so he was just kind of a normal dude until they did this, and then he became a psycho and ended up trying to destroy the world because of it.
You know what? You get what you deserve when you start fucking with magic and forcing people to do stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
I don't recommend it.
Nothing good happens.
And then we get to meet Randolph and Naloot. Randolph is a paladin and Naloot is a thief. And they are much higher level characters.
The amount of hatred I have for Randolph just right off the bat.
Oh, he is such a dick. He's a paladin and a total asshole.
Paladins are typically assholes from the very limited... Because my only
They're
real
holy
experience...
knights. They're crusaders from...
My only experience with paladins prior to this was Fallout with Paladin Dance. And also, fuck him too. I hate him just on principle. I wanted to destroy the paladins.
They are knights who are so devoted to a holy order that they're very myopic in their views of right and wrong. They're very lawful good alignment. So
Randolph comes in here and starts yelling at Shogo and the crew.
Why would you be so reckless? You guys are obviously too low level for that dragon. I hate when people don't recognize their fucking limitations.
I wrote down, seriously, dude, I get that this is Shogo's fault, but also go get eaten by the knockoff blue-eyed white dragon and take the cat girl with you.
Yeah.
Like, I despise him.
Yeah. It's interesting because him and Naloot also have this weird, like, she is also his super fanboy cheerleader, but in a much more toxic way. Because this is I love him so much. One day he'll notice me, senpai, and then we'll get married. And, like, he just doesn't...
I rolled my eyes.
He doesn't even have fucking time for it, right?
He calls them jokes. And, here's the thing. If you're not interested, then you need to make sure there's a good boundary. You can't just say, oh, you're telling bad jokes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the necessary background to know if he's sat down and had a real conversation with her about this.
He doesn't seem like the type.
No, but the way he just dismisses her feelings without actually addressing them is bothersome and not a thing that helped me like him.
Oh, no.
Like,
I think these two are here to show a contrast to Shogo and Yuko in a supportive relationship where, like, someone's building you up in a positive way. Where these two are in a completely toxic relationship where she's building him up and he is this cold stone wall who doesn't give a shit about her at all. At least up to what we've seen so far. Randolph shows a small bit of okay, there might be something deeper there as we go. But at this point, this guy is just a total asshole.
Everything about him sucks.
Yeah. And we find out that Randolph... and them says, if we first class adventurers hadn't stepped in, you might have been totally wiped out. So the reason they weren't killed by the dragon is these high level people came along and scared the dragon off, which is why they're alive. So Randolph is like, oh, Shogo owes me his life, so I should slam him into a wall and give him a little life lesson here, which he does. He slams him into the wall. He's like, I can't stand people who don't know their own limits, especially when they end up causing someone's death. Losing a life because of some imbecile's foolish actions is something that should never happen. Speak. Why did you do something so stupid? So it's weird because he's he's so angry at this, in his eyes, at this completely unneeded loss of life. Like, this loss of an innocent life. He is so angry at it that he takes it out on Shogo in a way that's completely inappropriate. And if Shogo wasn't so lost in his own grief, he could have been like, dude, there was a kid. We were trying to save a kid. Like, we didn't just decide we wanted the XP and the gold. Like, we did this.
They didn't do it for fame.
Yeah,
they didn't do it for glory.
We did it for a child.
There was a small child that my sister
ran in and said that we had to follow suit. Like, honestly, if we're gonna lay the blame somewhere,
I mean, I guess you could blame Yuko.
Yeah, I don't want to because I like Yuko.
Yeah, here's the thing: no one did. I could see being sincerely upset if they went there for the fame or the glory, or
the
they
XP,
wanted
the money, whatever.
Any of that would be shallow reasons and would be a thing where you could be like, y'all were stupid.
Right.
Why did you do a stupid thing?
Which is what Randolph thinks, because he doesn't give them a chance to explain, and he doesn't care what they have to say.
He wouldn't have cared if they had said it.
He wants someone to yell at.
Yeah.
He's mad because someone died, and I guess maybe he feels responsibility, or maybe he just, as he says, doesn't like seeing people lost because of dumb shit they do. Like,
but they went there because a little girl was in danger and they didn't know from what.
Yeah.
And then they get there and it's a giant dragon that they know they can't fight. And they weren't even trying to fight. They were trying to distract so that they could grab a girl and run.
Yeah,
they had every intention of leaving.
Yeah, they weren't sticking around. But Randolph has no time for any of this. And basically, after he throws Shogo up against a wall, Shogo runs upstairs, and he's like, look, before anything else happens, you should just quit this. Leave. Stop being an adventurer. You suck at it.
You clearly can't do this.
Yeah. He storms out. Then we have Ray and Dustin talking about Shiruru, who just, if she sees someone hurt, she has to help. And that goes for physical, spiritual, emotional. In any way, if someone needs help, she's going to help, even to her own detriment. And Dustin kind of throws a little jab to Ray, like, oh, yeah, you're not worried about the competition, are you? She's like, you think I'm worried about a guy like that? But Ray looks a little worried about a guy like that.
Yeah, I wrote down Ray and Shiru forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very upset if Shiru ends up with the dude. I want Ray and Shiru.
I feel like Ray.
Ray has a flame, and she actually belongs in this world, and she's spent the time and energy.
That's why I think it will be, right? Just because I think, like, this dude's going back home eventually. Maybe not. I've only read spoilers. I've only read 1 and 2 of this, so, like, I don't know how the story wraps up, and I don't know. But I imagine dude's going home eventually, and then Ray can finally be a thing.
Here's to me crossing my fingers and hoping that this novel...
I mean, I hope Dustin the Dark Horse comes in from the back, but whatever.
Dustin has shown zero interest in anyone.
Dustin loves his books.
And that's fine.
Dustin might be the asexual character here.
We can have an asexual, like, Dustin can just be here for the novel.
He is the only person that seems to be completely immune to Shiruru's charms.
And Ray is not. Ray, every time Shiruru gives those puppy dog eyes, Ray folds, and I want that to be a thing. Because Ray, I really enjoyed the grumpy character and the sunshine character trope, where you have that grumpy character who's just like fed up with the world all the time, and then you have the little bright sunshine character who comes up and is like,
well, the character who's only good because they are following a character who is good.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I'm not a good person, but I'll do what this one says, and this person is a good person. So you're very lucky. You're lucky I didn't fall in love with an asshole. I mean, again, that's the difference between fucking Nilut the thief and and Ray. Like, if Ray had fallen in love with Randolph, then you would have, like, Randolph would have a super powerful fighter with him who was doing amoral shit. Like, Ray is luckily following a good moral compass.
Yes.
As opposed to a bad one.
Randolph and Ray are very similar characteristically wise. Like, they're both the cold, aloof types.
Fighter type, yeah.
But Ray is following, in my opinion, in love with Shiruru, and that makes her a very different person.
Makes her a better person.
Yes.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
Yes.
So Shiruru goes up to see if Shogo's okay, and also put Yuko's crystal, her life crystal, onto a chain, like a necklace
and
for him.
give him a giant booby hug.
Yes, which, I'll be honest,
seems unnecessary.
as someone, it's a heal. It's a way to heal people. I feel like that's what I need when I'm really suffering.
I am irritated.
The power of the hug to boobs is strong. It felt weird here, I'll be honest.
Unnecessary.
And I kind of like that Shogo kind of pushes her off. He's like, I might be enjoying this too much. Look, I'm trying to mourn. I can't feel good right now. You gotta go. Like, I'm very sad.
So this is where broken. I truly want to lodge the complaint.
Yep.
That I am irritated by the use of women to further a man's narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to admit that they handled it emotionally well here, because it isn't just, like, they dwell on this for a minute.
Yeah.
And
they don't just move past it.
But I do want to... So, like... In these fantasy narratives,
mm-hmm.
I find it irritating when the purpose of a girl character is just to further a dude.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do think that there are, like, stories where, like, the point is an emotional narrative. Like, the point is, like Your Lie in April.
Yeah.
It's still... But, like, that thing focuses around emotional growth.
Yeah.
The point of that narrative is that emotional situation. This bothers me because, like, there has to have been there was probably a better way and less of a cheaty way to do this that wouldn't have involved the death of a girl just for a dude's development.
Yeah.
I hate that.
That's fair. And we also talked about this before. It doesn't bother me as much in respect to, like, death is a motivator, and, like, it makes perfect sense to have someone that you care about dying being a motivator. To your point, I would find it interesting if it happened the other way, where a guy character dies and the woman is spurred to, that's her call to adventure. Like, that's just not something you see nearly as often as this. But this is, you can't argue that this is a trope that is used a lot, and it would bother me. It bothers me a small bit, but it would bother me more if, like, this was the only female in the entire thing.
And it is true that he's surrounded by women.
But I also get why it's just a thing. Like, I roll my eyes when you have the fucking the two people miscommunicating, and then, like, I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired of this trope. Like, so much stupid stuff had to happen so that these two would misunderstand each other. Like, it's lazy. It's the most lazy form of love storytelling in the world, and I'm so fucking tired of it. So I get your revulsion at this trope.
It's not even revulsion. It's just mild annoyance, which might
you
be
hated
worse.
it a minute ago. So revulsion might be closer to
well, it's just, honestly, though, like, the revulsions is sort of like the difference between indifference and hate. Like, hate is a hot flash and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Whereas revulsion, or, like, the indifference is just a constant background noise of, like, that never leaves.
Yeah.
It's more of that, where it's a constant, like, it's also lazy. There, you could have found a drive for him where the best character didn't have to die.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's also, you are also speaking from a place of loss. Like, the character you most liked is the one they chose out of this group of 5. Like, the one they killed is the one you wanted most to not die. So, yeah, that sucks. Like, and I feel you, because not my favorite character, but probably my second favorite.
But they did handle it, to give credit. I do have to say they handled it emotionally. They handled it very well.
Yeah.
They do dwell on, and you get this sort of, you get to feel what he feels at the loss of his sister.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not a light feeling.
Oh, and Shiruru really turns on the waterworks, because he apologizes to her. Again, to give him credit, he apologizes to her for shaking her like a psychopath and, you know, basically saying, you're holding out a race spell on me, aren't you? Like,
Bring her back to life. I want the impossible from you.
And of course she feels guilty because the white mage's job is to keep everyone in the party healthy. Like that's, if every class has a job in the group, that's her job. And so she quote unquote failed, which is not fair to her. Both of them have taken full blame for this.
Yeah.
Which I think is why both of them are the ones that are so quick to jump on the, let's go look for this spell, even though it's a mythical thing that's never been found in real life. Let's go look for it. Because they both feel very responsible. And she says, like, oh, right before she died, she was talking about how you, in the real world, you'd lost your smile. Like, you were always so unhappy. And you were just go to work, go home.
Do they know that they're from a different world? Has that, okay.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'd forgotten.
Yuko-san told me, Shugo-san, that you had been down for a while and it worried her. But ever since you came to this village and started adventuring with us, you found your smile again. She said it made her so happy. She was so glad. So even at the end, she was thinking of, like, you. And like...
So they haven't established that they're from a different world where this is a video game.
I think he's tried to explain it a few times, and I think it's been more of a, you know what, we don't know what you're saying. It's fine, whatever. So Shiru's like, I know what'll cheer you up. And then the next scene, they're out in the field having a picnic. It's like,
she's trying.
Yeah, she's like,
and honestly,
sitting around in a dark place is toxic for the body. The body and soul go together. First, the body needs to be fully healthy.
And honestly, surrounding yourself with community after loss is a good idea. She's not wrong.
Getting sun.
Isolation is bad.
Yeah, get that
and
vitamin
sitting
D.
in a dark place is also bad.
Yeah.
She's got good instincts.
Yeah, and he's trying to figure out how to, like, what do I do with my life now? Like, do I try and get back home? I can't go back home without her, but fuck, like, yeah, he's lost. And all of a sudden, these bombs attack, which are these little fireballs with, like, hands and eyes.
They're cute.
They are very cute, and they are another monster that's been in Final Fantasy since, like, I don't know, the fourth one at least. They've been around for a long time. And now he's freezing up because now...
Trauma, man.
Yeah, trauma and the idea that you won't live forever. Because, hey, surprise, surprise, you can die in this world.
Mortality comes for us all.
A thing that has finally hit him. Which is funny because it's a thing that hits us in the real world and it's not a video game. A lot of us don't realize you can die in the real world until it happens to someone close to us. We know it is an abstract concept, but it needs to be, we need to have our face rubbed in it before mortality really hits us. And or maybe
you realize it too early, because I was just thinking,
well, I realized it too early because someone close to me died. So that's a little column A, little column B.
No, it's just, I'm thinking of my Chibi Chibi girl and how she has very big questions for someone so small about death and stuff. And I know that she hasn't lost anyone super close to her in that kind of way, but it doesn't stop her from panicking and being very anxious about it. Yeah.
And maybe someone at school or someone on a TV show. Like, a lot of kids from my generation learned about death from Bambi. The generation
that was so fucked up.
The generation after me probably learned from Lion King. Disney's really to blame, is what I'm trying to say. The company that owns all of our entertainment might be responsible for this.
You should pay for the therapy, Disney.
A few nights ago, I went to the symphony, and they were doing video game music, which is the only reason a person like me would go to the symphony. And there is a Square game, this attaches in two ways, called Kingdom Hearts, which combines Final Fantasy stuff with Disney stuff. So you've got Mickey Mouse and Donald with Squall and Cloud, and it's a fun time. It's a good romp. It's the plot's so convoluted. You need like one of those wall boards with the string. Yeah, to figure it out. And even then, good fucking luck. But you know, it's a fun little romp. And they did a music from that, and they were showing scenes from Disney, like on the wall in the background while the symphony's playing. And I realized that Bambi is 90% downer. That movie,
it took you
over half of it. Well, everyone remembers the death of Bambi's mother scene. Like, that's the scene. But there's also the fire scene where the forest burns down. There's also the scene where the bucks are fighting. And, like, Bambi can't figure out why he suddenly wants to ram horns with people. Like,
oh, yeah.
that whole fucking movie. Like, with the exception of the scene where he finds a skunk that wants to be called Flower, the whole fucking movie's a downer. And I realized that watching scenes from Bambi while listening to Kingdom Hearts music. And long story short, back to the scene we're supposed to be covering. There's a bomb, and their whole thing is when they blow up, they do damage to people.
Yep.
And so he's throwing everyone out of the way.
Because he thinks it's going to be a giant explosion.
Right. But this is a low-level bomb, ergo a low-level explosion. It's just a little poof. He's a baby. It's a little embarrassing because he's tossing everyone out of the way. And
Ray takes this very personally.
Yeah, Ray's like, how cowardly are you? Like, come on, like, what's happened to you?
I mean, it's not his fault.
No, it's absolutely not. But Ray is not the kind of person who understands mental health and trauma. Like, that's not Ray's strong point. That's what Shiruru's here for. So Ray doesn't have to think about that kind of stuff or engage in it in any way. So they go back to their picnic after this very small battle with a bomb fragment. And Shogo's looking at the food, and those weird little screens are coming up again.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, that's weird. And he's like, well, I'm not seeing, like, helpful information, but I'm seeing the ingredients. And he starts, like, kind of reading them out loud. And Dustin gets mad because this is his picnic. This is the food that he made. He's like, how do you know all my secret ingredients?
I worked really hard to hide the taste of the fact that there was the cheap food that I could afford to buy, bitch. What are you doing telling everybody?
Yeah, dodo eggs were cheaper, okay? Stop telling people that they're in all the food. And no one else could tell. Everyone else like, oh, it's delicious.
They don't care.
Yeah.
It tastes good.
Yeah.
Which honestly is my approach to food. Like,
yeah.
I mean, this may be cow meat, but as long as it tastes all right, I'm going to keep eating it.
Exactly. But yeah.
Put bugs in my food. As long as I don't taste them, I don't care.
You will eat the bugs.
Don't tell me.
Yeah. Same. Like, I'll eat bugs as long as I don't know they're bugs. Keep your secrets. But yeah, Dustin's a little upset because his secret sauce is being revealed. And this is the first time we get a name for this. Shogo describes this skill as Libra. Which in the Final Fantasy world is basically an identify spell that you cast on monsters or people or items to figure out what they're about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I have that ability. I'm looking at your food. That's how I knew what was in it. And they're like, Libra? That's a legend. That's not a real spell. No one has that. And his mind, of course, immediately goes to the raise spell. And he's like, oh, you thought that was a legend too. But I actually have this. And
I can do this.
If this is actually real, maybe that's actually real. Mm-hmm. So they start telling him all the legends about, because he's like, yeah, give me anything you have. From something some drunk said in a bar to something you read in a book a long time ago. I'm writing it all down. And I swore I wasn't going to do this for all of the Final Fantasy references, but I'm going to pick out a few. And this is one of them. He's talking about different legends. And one of them, he says, is, if we look beyond magic, there's the story of Matoya, the witch who made revival potions. The very first Final Fantasy game, there is an elf prince who is asleep, and you find a witch named Matoya who will give him a draught to wake him up if you get back her glass eye that was stolen by an ogre. It's the whole thing.
I don't know anything.
No, but my point is that they used that from Final Fantasy 1, but now, instead of a potion to wake up sleep, it is a potion to bring people back from the dead. So they take the legend that I know and they turn it on its head just a little bit.
They turn it slightly.
Yeah, they give it a 45-degree turn and like, oh, now this is a legend of where a revival potion came from, a Phoenix Down. And I'm like, oh, you clever. And again, for you, it meant nothing.
I mean, I was
for
just
a Final
like,
Fantasy,
more people,
for a Final Fantasy person, I was like, oh, that is so good. How clever. And they mentioned Phoenix, who is very prominent in the Final Fantasy world, and we all know from other legends.
Yeah, Phoenixes. I do know some of this stuff.
Yeah, because again, they took a lot of it from Dungeons and Dragons, which took a lot of it from
I know that
mythology.
European culture is a plague upon humanity, but a lot of stuff has been passed down just because it existed once upon a time in some white person group that,
yeah.
And things like orcs and dragons.
Yeah. Don't poo-poo it just because it's European.
No, but
every culture brings some good things as long as they don't try and then force those good things on every other country. That's where I feel like Europe fucked up.
This is 100% true. I would have liked the stories of fairies if I had read about them in a book on the Celtics that wasn't somehow ubiquitous everywhere because they decided to go take over the world.
Yeah.
Like, it's the taking over the world part.
At least they were also doing it to themselves. Or should I remind you of the driving the snakes out of Ireland thing?
Look, it's the taking over the world part I have a problem with, not the fairies. Yeah. I find fairies very interesting. As someone who has practiced Wicca, like, you don't fuck with the fae. You have you leave them over there and you don't fuck with them. But I find the taking over the world part irritating. Yeah. But I do know about
ruins a good tale.
It does.
Yeah, but I'm a sucker for mythology. Any mythology, I'm here for.
I love mythology.
Yeah,
100% agree with you.
So we get another scene where everyone's on board except Ray.
And then Sharu.
The eyes are fired like bullets from a gun.
And her one weakness.
Dustin
Sharu.
pops in to say, "So which one of us is the party leader again?"
Look, Dustin does nothing but poke at Ray.
Yeah, he also cooks, and he's also the literary one. In fact, he's the one that brings up the idea of the Grand Library.
Yep.
Which I am all for. I'm like, yes, Dustin, you are now my favorite. Let's go to the Grand Library right now.
I wrote down here, a library that's not open to the public ought to be a crime. Because I was very sad to know that we weren't going to go to the library.
I hope we appreciate how lucky we are to have public libraries until funding disappears and we don't anymore. We should appreciate and realize what a blessing libraries are.
I agree with you completely.
From giving, homeless people a place to get out of the cold during the day, to giving internet access to people that can't afford it, to giving books to people that can't afford it, to inspiring youth to read, like to having cooking classes and to renting out like cooking utensils. Like
they have little toddler classes.
Libraries are the fucking best.
They are the best.
If you are not currently in the library in your town, stop this podcast and go hang out there for an hour and then come back.
Yeah, or even if you have a library card, you can get the Libby app and you can borrow books for free.
Yeah, you only have to go in the one time.
Yeah, it's an indispensable tool that is a wonderful part of a community and that should be appreciated before they vanish.
And it lets us know that information should be free to all, and so should books. So they've got the idea to either go to the Grand Library and research or to Griad Triad, the information broker, who's this weird, cute little yin-yang boy with some white and black hair. Him and his assistant are basically greedy for that kill. They can answer any question, but the price is going to cost you.
They're information brokers.
Yes, and it is expensive.
Yeah. I think it would be fun to be an information broker.
Oh man, that's the job I'd want. Basically, you're that philosopher. It's like, yeah, I want to do that. So they talk about how expensive, how you have to be a renowned adventurer to get into the library, and you have to have a lot of money to get an answer from the information broker.
Yep.
So the answer to both of these problems are, we got to adventure more. We got to get some renown and some money. Yeah. Because right now we ain't got either.
We ain't got shit.
No one knows who we are and we're broke. That's why we got dodo eggs in our pasta. And Dustin is big on the idea. And so Shogo is kind of like, look, I have Libra. I can just look at monsters. I can figure out their weaknesses. You guys can exploit them because I'm not much of a fighter. And XP and money. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. He's very excited about this plan. It seems like it's foolproof. They're heading back to town. They're looking for adventure. And what do they find on the local notice board but a picture of the dragon and a sign, a wanted sign. Because apparently this dragon has continued to cause problems to the point there's now a bounty on its head for 20 million gil, which is a lot of fucking gil. That gets them close to getting that question answered that they're worried about. So, hey, here's a way to get renowned and money.
So, I said, I don't know what you're actually supposed to do, bitch, but me thinks that a rematch with the dragon that just chomped your sister isn't the best move.
Yeah. The book 2 ends with him just standing with the poster behind him being like, I don't know, man. Like, because I think he's with you, Cecilia. I don't think he wants to fucking rematch this thing right now. But he also knows that he literally asked a question and the answer to it appeared on a billboard 20 seconds later. Like, it's some Deus
Not
Ex
everything
Machina.
is a sign.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like...
It isn't a video game.
I feel like this is one of those things where, you know, like, the teenager, like, is lost and they're like, what do I do next? And then, like, the billboard says, you know, whatever. And they're like, that's it. That's what... That is not always a good idea.
No.
Actually, most of the time, I'm going to say that's a bad idea.
Yeah. But it is also that when you don't know, just act until you get more information. But in this case, the acting is jumping into the jaws of a dragon, and I'm not sure that's going to get you any more information, personally.
It might get you dead.
Might get you dead. Shogo is equally not sure if this is a good idea. He's sitting in they're now back in the local pub talking, and Ray's like, what do we do about this dragon situation? And Dustin's like, well, I hate to break it to everyone, but this is a group effort. And the dude that's organizing it is our old pal Randolph. Doesn't really matter. We're not getting in this group anyway. Because, that dude does not like or trust us.
I hate Randolph, but thank God.
Yeah, Randolph might be saving their lives here. So they don't know. They're trying to figure it out. Like, what do we do now? And all of a sudden, Shogo grabs everyone's food and starts rearranging it.
Yeah,
like, you eat this now. You eat this now. I'm drinking the apple juice. And Shiruru's like, I was saving that for after my meal. Like, imagine how angry you would be if we all went to a restaurant and everyone ordered a meal. And then, like, I just stood up and was like, no. You're actually eating the clam chowder. And you're actually having the steak. And and just rearranged everyone's food and made everyone eat something besides what they wanted. That's what happens here.
Honestly, I would probably let it slide. Because most of the time, I don't really want what I ordered anyway. I'm just... Especially if we go to if I go to a place I've never been before, I'm probably gonna the person who's waiting for me to order is just standing there. I'm probably just gonna order the first thing that I see that I think I can pronounce.
That's fair. So yeah,
if there's too many choices,
I will tell you a good tip. Something that as someone who often eats at places with cuisines I don't know, and I'm always trying to try new things food wise. Ask the waiter what their favorite thing is. When you're at a loss, that way you don't even have to pronounce it. They will point to it.
Favorite thing is something spicy that I can't eat.
You can ask follow-up questions. You can be like, "Oh, is that spicy?"
Conversation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's you're avoiding a different awkward situation by doing an awkward situation called talking. I don't know. Works for me. It's not for everybody, but. To our listeners, if you're at a restaurant and you have no idea what to order, ask the waiters and waitresses. They've been in the back. They know what has rat droppings in it and what doesn't. So, good advice.
That is true.
Yeah. So, but he takes them out. He feeds them all each other's food and then takes them out. And they're like, man, my sword arm swings a little easier. Or, my magic's coming to me a little quicker. And Shogo's like, yeah, my arrows are aiming a little better. And they're like, what's up? And he's like, well, I found with Libra, if I concentrate harder, I get more information. And I got information that different meals help different abilities, which means if we eat the right things, we get a little better than we were before. So this Libra skill's finally starting to pay some more dividends.
Actually, and again, this is back to one of the complaints I have about Isekai. I actually really appreciate this ability. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a really cool way to use the way he works.
Yeah. And again, it's also he's not the main character. He's not Ray. He's not the swordsman who gets up in the front of the fight and does all this cool stuff. He's an archer. He hides behind trees and shoots. He reads up and tells people, like, okay, you're getting ready to fight this thing. It can do this, this, and this. He he studies. He's the nerdy
That's the
book
thing.
dude.
He studies.
Yeah.
He studies. That is a perfect encapsulation.
And he fights from a safe distance. Yeah. And again, that is one of the things I really appreciated about this is he doesn't even feel like if this wasn't from his point of view, he wouldn't even be the main character.
No, he is just a character.
Yeah, he's just a dude. So as they're talking, Corel shows up, which is a kind of a tiger, panther, leopard thing with like these huge.
It's a cougar.
Yeah, it's a cougar, but it's got like huge
It's a cougar like, with a mustache.
Tentacle mustaches coming off of it. And anyone who plays Final Fantasy knows they're bad news. They're a much higher level creature. Usually fight them and later on in the game, and it's never a good thing. So they're trying to figure out, like, oh my god, it's going to just straight up murder us. But as it's in the middle of a charge, it is suddenly in 3 pieces because Randolph has shown up because he has to pose. The next scene is a picture of Shogo with his mouth on the floor and Randolph doing his cool, like, I didn't even turn around, like, with his sword.
I hate him
sheathed
so much.
again, yeah.
I wrote down here, far be it for me to judge our ragtag team of misfits, but can any of them actually fight? Because I need one of them, preferably Ray, to kick his ass.
Yeah.
I need someone to hurt him.
Yeah, up to this point, we have not seen a lot of what they can do, which is also very interesting. Like, usually in the first 5 minutes, each member in the team shows what they got, and you're like, oh, this is actually a pretty cool team. But we haven't seen any black magic. We haven't seen Ray sword fight for the most part. Like, we've seen a whole lot of Cure 1 spells. And we've seen a couple of arrows from Shogo that caused an avalanche, and other than that have not done anything.
No.
So yeah, another place where it kind of feels like they're turning your expectations on their ears.
I just need someone to hurt Randolph, though.
Oh, man.
We
all want to see Randolph hurt.
Him, like, limping. Because, goddamn him.
He is obnoxious. And we all want to see Randolph. You are not alone, Cecilia. Everyone wants to see Randolph taking down all the pegs. Not just a peg, all the pegs. But we very
Why
briefly...
is this world so dangerous?
Yeah, right? Like... Jesus, move
the beginning, I'm just now thinking of this. Yeah. We start our adventure with a dragon. Mm-hmm. That's the first real bad guy that we see.
Yep.
And, I mean, it established here in a minute, the dragon might not even be a bad guy.
Yeah.
But the dragon is the first creature that they fight.
Yep.
And they are massively overpowered here.
Yeah.
To fight it, like the dragon is too strong for them, and then it goes from a dragon to, I guess, a couple dodo birds, but like they go from a dragon to a fucking cat.
Yeah,
they're fighting a tiger.
Yeah,
and they're also not ready for that.
Yeah,
and like.
Although they claim they have taken out a dragon, although they had a mercenary with them, and it was still the fight of their life. But they're like, we fought one time. We beat it. Yeah, we had hired help, and we still barely did it, but whatever.
Whatever, a win's a win, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. We're taking the W, buddy.
It seems like a very dangerous world.
Randolph also has a party of 5, much like Shogo had at one point before R.I.P. Yuko.
Still hurts.
But we don't meet the other 3 really. But they are, of course, there to mouth off and stuff.
I need someone to beat their
In
ass.
Volume 2, you get the other 3 kind of become more characters. Right now, they're just more cheerleaders
NPCs.
for Randolph. Yeah, they're NPCs for Randolph. And Randolph's like, hey, you know what? I'm actually proud of you. Dodos are right at your fighting level.
Again, Ray, I need you to come in clutch here and like just beam him in the back of the head with your sword.
At least no deaths will befall you. And it's funny too because it's hard to get Randolph is an arrogant asshole. But it's hard to get a read from him.
I did write down here Randolph and Shogo, enemies to lovers, slow burn, 5,000 words. So I get that Randolph sincerely doesn't want anyone to get to die or get hurt.
Yeah.
Like, he seems like this is actually a thing for him that he is very traumatized about. Mm-hmm. You talk about Ray losing someone. Something has happened to Randolph.
Oh, yeah. I think Randolph lost his whole party one time, probably.
Something,
He is broken.
He has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, if he weren't such a fucking asshole about
it's the delivery. His advice is kind of good, Like...
I mean, his advice is shit, but...
Well, no, his advice is don't go... His advice is your advice. You need to not go after that
But he
dragon.
says it in a way where it's like, I doubt your ability to handle any situation ever, so stay at home.
Yeah.
Which is not the same thing as, hey,
He said you could handle dodos. No, you're right.
Yeah.
You are exactly right. Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah. Oh, no, he's an asshole, but... He does seem to genuinely not want Shogo to die. Like...
Yeah, again, Randolph Shogo, enemies to lovers.
We'll
slow
see.
burn.
We'll see how we go.
I mean, I'm just...
And there's a very... another bomb comes out, and it's kind of a joke at this point. They murder it very easily. And Shogo is kind of feeling like... Because Randolph didn't even look at him while he was talking. He feels like total shit.
Again, enemies to lovers.
Yeah,
Slow
and
burn.
Ray notices. And Ray kind of gives him a pep talk, which I did not expect from Ray. But Ray's like, are you not going to make a fuss about the bomb today? Remember how you threw us all down last time? And he's like, well, no. You told me it wouldn't do much even if it exploded, so I'm not doing that anymore. And Ray's like, exactly. Yesterday you made a fuss, but today you did not. It is a trifling change, but that is how one grows. And I was like, oh, Ray's actually being nice. But everyone immediately makes fun of Ray for it and calls Ray out on it. And then Ray's like, no, he just looked really pathetic. And I couldn't stand looking at him anymore.
Ray is me. I am Ray.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give you shit, and then you look sad, and it's like, all right, fine. Look, you're growing. It's okay. You'll get it.
Yeah.
And then, no, I am Ray.
Yeah. So when
I need a sunshine person. If anyone wants to volunteer to be my little sunshine girlfriend or boyfriend.
Our DMs are open, and, you can also just put comments under our post. Gas us up.
Yeah.
But... Shogo's looking at the bomb fragments and he realizes that some of them have explosive powers and some of them have very light powers. And the rest of the party talks about how, like, well, they try and use them to start fires. They try and use them as bombs, but you never know how powerful one's going to be. Yeah, so they're sort of useless.
Yes. They sell cheap because sometimes you'll get
a huge explosion and sometimes it's barely a spark.
And sometimes it's just crap.
And Shogo's like, oh, well, I can see. So Shogo's Libris skills starting to pay more dividends once again.
I actually really like he has a brain and he's figuring out how these things can work together, which is very cool.
Yeah, and it's also neat that I like that little aspect of this world. I'm like, okay, so they have bomb fragments, but they're relatively useless.
It's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot. Yeah. You never know what you're going to get.
So I'm not going to pay a lot for this. It's like buying a mystery firework. Like, you don't know.
It's one of those grab bags at the dollar. It's one of those grab bags at the dollar store where you're like, it's only $1.
Yeah,
so like, even if it's shit, it's fine.
Absolutely. This won't mean anything to you, but we get a shot of another FF mascot, the Cactrot, who's like a little cactus man that runs around. Yeah. You need to watch one run around. They're very funny. Because they never get out of this position, so they're just like hopping around like in this weird dance. They're very cute. He's looking through a pile of bomb fragments that have been discarded outside of like a blacksmith shop or something. And he's trying to find one that's got some power to it using his Libra skill. And Shiruru shows up, and she's kind of gives him a little cheery up gift. She gives him some better arrows than what he had, telling him that we're gonna get better together. We're gonna find this raise spell. It's kind of a yay again. Shiruru's specialty, the yay pep talk.
I love her.
Yeah, she's so great, and he's like, "Aw, thanks. I'm really grateful. I don't think I'm good enough to deserve these yet, but I'm gonna train until I am. Thank you for the gift. It's very sweet." And he's also mentioning how he's like, he lucked into a really good group. He's like, they listen, they go along with my wild theories, they cheer me up when I'm down, and they support me, even though I'm useless. I have great companions.
Again, the power of a good friendship.
Yeah,
I just Even in fiction, like fiction or nonfiction, a good group of people who genuinely care about you.
Everyone deserves that.
Yeah, everyone deserves it, and it's genuinely and sincerely like an indescribable gift.
It is
to have those people.
You see it when you see like when you're watching people like conservative personalities, like your Alex Jones, your Ben Shapiro's, those types. When you watch how quickly they like turn on each other like rabid dogs over seemingly the smallest shit, you're like, do you have any genuine friendships in your entire life? Like with your families, do you have friends that you actually can trust in any way, shape, or form? Because I feel like maybe a lot of the poison that you spit out into the world is because no one's ever hugged you and said it's going to be okay.
Well, it's also those friendships aren't built on a sincere like my best friend and I have been best friends for like 20 years almost. And in all honesty, there's nothing she could do where I'd be turning around and ready to stab her in the back. Short of, like, hurting my children.
Right.
Like, outside of, like, truly unthinkable things.
Yeah.
If we had a falling out tomorrow, it would hurt, but I wouldn't be ready to jump and, like, hurt her,
right.
You know?
No.
That doesn't make sense to me. And there's a genuinely astounding lack of between these people where, like, yeah, I don't think Alex Jones knows what a sincere friend is because I don't think he has relationships that aren't transactional at heart.
Well, he has a story, Knowledge Fight shout out, where like he was 11 or 12 and his mom basically like took him off of her lap and was like, you're now too old to receive affection from me. Like, you can't get on my lap anymore. Like, I'm not going to like hug you anymore. Like, I'm not going to tuck you in anymore. Like, you're now at the age where you no longer can receive any comfort from another human being. And man,
bad parents, man.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's like the shit his dad put in his head. Yeah, bad parents. But
it is like, it's really heartwarming to see genuine, like,
I love a good team.
Well, and just genuine friendships where people like they
from
like
Young
each
Justice to this to fucking Sailor Moon. I love a good team. When a team is working together and like they accept each other's shortcomings and they come up with a plan that utilizes everyone's strengths and they take out the bad guy or the obstacle. Like, I'm there for that shit.
Oh yeah.
I'm there for that shit.
Even the to go to villains even because like the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah.
With her and Poison Ivy.
Yeah, when they all work together.
Yeah, it's just when people actually genuinely like each other. It's a fun thing to watch.
Oh yeah, yeah. I wish more of my villains were like work together and be trustworthy. Well, it's just not in their nature.
Well, when you're Lex Luthor, I can see why maybe you don't.
Yeah. Well, why like anyone else with like Lex Luthor?
Would like you. Yeah. That's what I mean.
But Shogo's looking at the bomb fragments and the arrows, and his Libra. I say his Libra acts up like it's a case of a flare up of herpes or something. Like his Libra's starting to act up again. He needs to take his medicine, and it says combinable. And he realizes that if I put the bomb frag on the arrow, I make a fucking exploding arrow. Badass.
Does this not hurt the arrows? She just bought you new nice arrows.
I don't think he's going to get to keep the one that he turns into a bomb. But it's worth it because the next scene is them fighting another Corel. And this time they take it down relatively easily.
Yeah.
Because he shoots an arrow that explodes like a motherfucker. We get a great scene of the new combined object. Bomb arrow explodes upon dealing piercing damage. And he's like, there's no way in hell I'm going to miss. And sure enough, he doesn't. He blows that fucker to Kingdom Come.
Yeah, no, they do a good job on this one.
Yeah. They come walking into where Randolph is accepting people for this Dragon Quest. He's basically like, look, the prize is huge. We'll split it as many ways as I deem worthy adventurers. We'll all take it down together. We'll split the award. So he's interviewing people for this mission he wants to go on. And there's a kind of a crazy old man that's saying, hey, you shouldn't. The dragon's actually the keeper of the mountain. You should not oppose the dragon.
So I wrote down here,
and I was like, this is an interesting twist.
Yeah, I wrote down here, why does no one ever listen to the wisely old man?
Mm-hmm.
And for as much as Shogo is paying attention to everything, this does seem like a big miss.
Well, Shogo walks in at the end of the speech, so I don't think, like, they walk in right as the old man's getting tossed out. So he didn't hear it at this point. Unfortunately, if he had, maybe things would have gone differently, because as a person who's played Final Fantasy video games, I know you always listen to the crazy old man.
Yeah. You don't ignore the warnings of the old grizzly guy and the weird cape.
Yeah, man's seen some shit. Maybe you ought to ask him. But, the old man's getting tossed out as Shogo's coming in. They push the old man, and Shogo puts a hand on him to steady him, which I'm like, all right, Shogo, sweet. Keep that old man from falling down. You're a good guy. And his party looking awesome, like they're all standing there looking badass.
They get a pose, finally.
Now they've finally done something worthy of a pose. They killed a Corel, and Dustin's got the bag, throws it on the table, like, yeah, motherfucker, here's some Corel whiskers. And
you said we couldn't do it, and guess what the fuck we done did?
Yeah, I assume that will take care of the entry fee. And Randolph's just looking at it with dots, and you can tell he is not happy, which made me happy.
It did. Look, I hate him.
Yeah.
I hope he gets a redeeming arc. And again, I would actually enjoy slow enemies to lovers, slow burn thing.
Yeah.
I would enjoy that for him and Shogo. But up to this point, he has no redeeming characteristics.
No.
And,
although, I'm going to push back on that a little bit with what happens here, which I kind of like from Randolph. But first, Shogo's got the swarmiest, smilingest, like, shit-eatingest grin I've ever seen. It's like, yeah, you're told when we could bring down these sorts of monsters, you'd take us to hunt some big, fat, juicy game, I believe. Isn't that right? And little thief girl, he's like, isn't that right, in the loot? And that's our little thief girl. She's like, well, I might have said that, but she's all stuttering. He's like,
serves her right.
You don't want Randolph to think it. Like, he immediately clocked that she cares what Randolph thinks, and she's like, you don't want Randolph to think you're a liar, do you?
You shouldn't have ran your mouth.
Yep. And he gets in Randolph's face now, and he's like, we have a good reason for participating, as I'm sure you're well aware. Like, gives him the fucking, like, say something. Fucking say something, Randolph. I'll slap the taste right out your mouth right here. And so there's like 3 or 4 awkward pages of silence. There's literally 3 panels of them just
staring,
dead-eyeing each other. And then finally Randolph gives him paperwork. State your party members' names, please. And Shogo, I don't think, thought this bluff would work, because he's got a very surprised look on his face. And Randolph's like, they're fine. They can carry the items. And there's 3 conditions. First, you obey all orders from me, your leader. Second, you will not act on your own. Third, you will not die. And that was the thing that I kind of liked from Randolph. Is, for me, it had kind of doctored vibes, like, no one dies today kind of thing. Like,
that's fair.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, Randolph, maybe there's more to you than, like, just this paladin asshole.
At this point, I had already kind of clocked that, like, something, like, he's got some trauma.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a vendetta against death.
Yeah.
Which seems unfortunate in this world, because there seems like a lot of things that are just ready to kill you the moment you turn around.
That effect. So Shogo and the party walks out, and the old man comes up to him again, and now is when you're talking, Cecilia, about how he should listen. The old man says, you must reconsider. This is the mountain's keeper. You mustn't lose your budding young lives to it. And he's like, thank you for your concern, but I have to go. Unfortunately, at this point, the old man has worded it in the way, I just don't want you kids to die fighting this thing. Not, it's the keeper of the mountain and it must be protected at all. If he had said the argument the same way he said it to Randolph, maybe it would have gone a little different. But he's just like, oh, don't let that dragon eat you. And Shogo's like, oh, thank you for... He's so sweet to this old man who's obviously deranged. And it was another point where I was like, I like... You're okay guy, Shogo.
Shogo seems like a good kid. Yeah. I'm not knocking, like...
And he's like, it's okay, we'll come back alive, just you wait.
Yeah, the problem is the dragon also needs to be alive.
Yeah.
From the sounds of it. I'm not 100% sure what's going on.
Yeah, I'm not either. But it made me want to read volume 2. I'll say that.
Yeah.
He's like, even so, this is no good at all. If the old legends are true, the Keeper is no ordinary dragon. They can never win. And it closes with a picture of the dragon like in the snow with them surrounding it, getting ready to fight. Although Volume 2 does not open with them fighting it. You get some travel time.
Yeah.
But it lets you know, hey, they will eventually fight this dragon. And at least according to this old man, they're not gonna win. Yeah. So that is all for Volume 1 of our Final Fantasy. And afterwards, you just get the writers talking about how, hey, we love Final Fantasy. We hope you like this book. And there's some translation notes, which are almost, the usual things about how honorifics work and things like that. And then a lot of reference, some of, not even all, but like a few of the Final Fantasy references and where they showed up for people who, of course. But for people who wanted to know, although I imagine it's a small group that. But I guess if you've played a few of the Final Fantasy games, but not all of them, you're like, oh, I wonder what this is from. They're like, oh, this is from Final Fantasy V. And you're like, oh, I never played that one. But yeah, that ends Final Fantasy Volume 1 Lost Stranger. As I said, I liked it very, very much. And we may very well come back to at least Volume 2, which I also have.
So I did appreciate that so far, despite the unnecessary fan servicey bits, this wasn't so bad. Like
it was not Sword Art Online, at least.
Look, it was like the powers he has comes from his own actual natural abilities. Like everything so far has made sense. The only problem I really had was
the death of Yuko.
And that isn't, well, one, it was because I really liked Yuko. Yuko was maybe my favorite character. But also, I just really despise the trope of woman has to die so man can do thing. No. That is a thing that bothers me a little bit.
Yeah. And here's another thing that may, again, it hasn't happened in Volume 2, slight spoiler, but I kind of assume she's coming back and going to be a character again. Like,
I hope
from the entire arc of this, it would be really un-manga-like and very strange for him to get to the end of the road and be like, oh, yeah, she just stayed dead, and turns out we both died when that truck hit us. Or, like, I went back to the real world without her. Or I stayed in this world but never got my sister back. Like, that, to me, seems unimaginable for a manga. So I feel like we haven't seen the last of Yuko. I'm sorry we had to spend 2/3 of this without her, but God willing, she'll be back again.
It's one of those tropes that bothers me. Yeah. Much like miscommunication, because it's also my least favorite trope.
Oh, I'm glad we see eye to eye on that.
Well, and you're going to go ahead and see, if you got a big question, go for it, and then I will...
Okay. Yes, well, just a very simple one. Video games. Obviously, big part of this, and a big part of my childhood. This may surprise you.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Is there a video game that touched you in a way that, like, carried on through your life? Like a lesson that a video game taught you, or just one that you think of often because... Like, it could be something as simple as like, oh, I think of the Fallout games all the time because they, for some reason, had the same decorators on the Loki TV show. Or something like that. Or it could be something really deep, like when I played What Remains of Edith Finch, like, I still have nightmares about it. Or just... there's a character in Stardew Valley, and there's a person I work with that looks just like whatever. What video game do you think has affected your life the most, and how or why?
You go first.
Okay. I'm actually going to say What Remains of Edith Finch. That is the first game that I ever played that had me in fucking tears.
Now, I remember watching you play What Remains of Edith Finch, and the storytelling on that game is amazing.
It blew my mind. It was the first game, walking simulator is what the games like that are called. It's the first walking simulator that I played that after I was done, I just sat with it. Like... The story, the uplifting message at the end, like all the sorrow and also the happiness and like...
The way it builds on itself.
And, oh, the baby's crib one just killed me. the baby's crib and then the older brother that works in the fish factory. Like, those two just... Oh, I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. That game and that message of how our family legacy of grief and sorrow doesn't have to be our legacy.
Right.
How you can take
breaking cycles.
You can break the cycle. You can take the good from that and not let the bad from that define you. Like, it just... To this day, I will occasionally think about, like, things from that game and be like, if I could ever tell a story that well, like, I would die a happy man. Like, it had everything I wanted, and again, that cycle breaking message from a mother to her son is just it was fantastic, and it will stick with me always.
I'm trying to think because I play video games, but not to the same extent that you do.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when I was little, I played, like, Jak and Daxter with my little brother, or we had an Ants video game.
Yeah.
Which we played together a lot. I don't know that any of them have necessarily really stuck with me that much.
Yeah.
But... to give a shout out to a game, regardless. Yeah. One of the few games that I have actually fully finished is a video game. Give me just a second, and I will actually look up the name of it. But you play as a transgender woman.
Oh.
So you're the main. That's the main character, and it's like a sort of like a walking game, but it's like a life scenario thing.
Okay.
And the different choices lead to different timelines, and the character goes, like, you can get her a girlfriend and, like, all of these little... It's a cute little...
Yeah. I think the game that you play that lets you realize that video games can be art and tell a impactful story is a game that, like, would count as a game that, like, really changes your viewpoints of that kind of stuff.
And it's just a fun, like, it was a cute game, which was actually part of the appeal of it. The music's really good, and, like, the graphics are cute, and it was an adorable little game. And like I said, this is one of the few times I actually fully finished a game.
Yeah.
Most of the time, things like Stardew Valley, I enjoy.
Yeah. That's a game with no end. I mean,
exactly.
You get to talk to your grandfather's ghost, and that's sort of the end. They roll the credits, but then you just keep playing forever.
Yeah, and until I get...
Ooh, new patch update coming soon. Woo woo. Yeah.
Until I get all of the things checked off, like, it's not done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there are lots of games I enjoy. I enjoy that one. I enjoy Animal Crossing, which is also a game without end.
I love it. I love some Animal Crossing. Honorable mention, of course, to the Final Fantasy series, and also the BioShock games, which I really liked.
I like those too.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to... Hold on. Let me see if I can find where I've purchased stuff so that I can find my games.
Yeah.
That just got recently played. I don't know if that's going to... Oh, A Year of Springs is what the game is called.
That's a good name.
And, yeah, it's a... Experience the story of Haru, Erica, and Monami. So you visit the springs with Haru, a young and anxious trans woman who wants to enjoy herself on a trip with Monami, but doesn't want to cause any trouble.
Yeah.
And then you just play through as Haru, and you get to experience, like, you have to make the choices of, like, because Haru is trans, they go to a woman's hot spring.
Right.
And... You know, do you try
hilarity ensues, right?
Yeah.
No?
Do you try to go to the spring even though you're a trans woman and you're not the
Yeah, the idea of not to go back to the gratuitous scenes from Final Fantasy, but the idea of a hot spring culture where you get naked with all your classmates all the time. Man, the problems that creates from How I Met My Husband, where you're trying to hide an erection while you're in the hot springs with a guy, to a trans person trying to navigate those waters, to use the pun.
Hey, fun fits.
Yeah, that's wild, and it's cool that there's a game that tackles that.
Yeah, you get to have...
Video games are art, people.
They really are.
Much like comic books, video games get a bad rap that is undeserved. that they aren't art. Like, that's, it makes me angry.
And here's the thing. Just like books, just like your run-of-the-mill books, you have really good books and you have really bad books. Yes. You have really good video games and you have really shit video games. And then you have
games that aren't good, but they're still good because they are that junk food game that you need sometimes.
Like the Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah.
I love that game. Yeah. It's pure. It's just to be a shit, but I love that game.
For me, it's Dynasty Warriors, where you just take a great general and you just wade through the other guy. It's like killing thousands and thousands because you're the biggest, best general. It's not a game about a plot. It's a game about it's just a very simple Romance of the Three Kingdoms, China, medieval times power fantasy, and it is sometimes that is the button that is the endorphin button I need pressed, and that is the one I go for.
Speaking of junk food games, though,
yes,
I know that I teased you with "I Want to Be a Wall," but
yes,
I was looking it up, and it's a 3-volume manga, and the third volume will be out in June. So I'm going to save that for my June pick. Okay. And for my next pick, we are going to finish Semantic Error.
Oh my god, there's a finish?
It is. It's done. I was kind of waiting to see if, like, sometimes you'll get extras on webcomics. And I was trying to wait and see because I know that some of the animation for Semantic Error has things that haven't happened in the webcomic yet.
Yeah.
So I was waiting to see if we were going to get any extras, any little, last little bits of it.
Right.
And it doesn't look like it.
Okay.
So we will be reading season 3 of Semantic Error on Manta.
All right. So,
and we will both get to
brush the dust off your Manta app. We are heading back in for season 3.
Both get to complain very much about miscommunication.
And
the things you do for love.
One of my favoriteest topics.
Look,
and I am not being sarcastic. Here's the thing, like, and we've talked about this before. Even the things I don't like, I like because I can always find something that interests me because I love the comic medium so much. I'm always there for it. And actually, the Semantic Error characters I like because they are so insufferable. And
there were moments when I was reading this last season where I'm like, I'm going to have to wait for them to be, like, further along before I continue reading because they're driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it is one of those situations, as we will discuss, where a simple conversation will solve your fucking problems. Yeah. And what do? You act like men.
Yeah, so, you don't conversate because that would ruin... Again, it's one of those lazy shortcuts.
It is.
Yeah. But Semantic Error in 2 weeks. Until then, be your own ally and... read some comics and play some video games. They're both great art forms.
Yes.
And we will
enjoy
see
yourself.
You. Yeah. We've got all the socials. We've got Patreon. You know the deal. It's all in the comments. Till then, stay safe. And if you get trapped in a video game world, just don't take it for granted. There's a raise spell.
Yeah. Don't assume you know how the story ends.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.